All right, we're live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Wednesday night edition on the Fightnwords network of what's happening in the world of sports. Every Wednesday night, we all join together for a couple of hours of sports conversation, and hope we give you a chance to give the listeners a little something that they did not know before, or we have some things that we just talk about that are just a lot of fun to talk about. Roy Cummings, as always, is in Tampa, Florida. He leads off for our first half hour. Roger is in Atlanta. We'll talk to Roger in just a moment. Roy, I'm going to start from an unusual standpoint tonight, only because I don't know. I mean, I know the answer to the question, but I don't know why. I was watching the Lightning game last night. Great game. 2-2 goes into overtime. First of all, the penalty right at the end of the regulation, I didn't understand that. But secondly, it never came on ESPN. They went right to the Dallas game, and I never saw the overtime. Did you guys have any trouble seeing it down there, or was it just up here that they didn't show it, or did I was going back and forth to the baseball game, but I wasn't off it that long that I wouldn't have seen the overtime.
I got to think that maybe it was one of those trips to the other game that you missed it because, yeah, we got it all here. I'm in Tampa, so I'm not sure when the change was made, but we definitely got it all here. Yeah.
Well, as I said, I kept going back and forth, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, they didn't put the score up till almost midway through the first period of the Dallas game when they said 3-2 that Washington won in overtime. Well, in overtime, I saw them go to overtime. Okay, well, that's all I wanted to ask on that question there. And secondly, one other hockey question for you, and that is that, there's a chance this year, we saw the Lightning a couple of times get a chance to win 3 in a row. Now we got a chance to see Florida winning 3 in a row. Your thoughts on the possibility of that happening in the world of hockey, Roy?
Well, it's certainly possible, but the Florida's chances of winning a third straight Stanley Cup have already taken a big hit because they've lost their captain, Andrei Barkov, and they're going to probably be without him for almost the entire season. That hasn't been, specifically determined yet, but he injured his knee in training camp, and looks like he's going to be out for at least 6 months. So if he comes back, it'll probably be just in time for the playoffs at the earliest, I think. And not only that, but they're without Matthew Tkachuk for a while, so they're kind of up against it a little bit. But given that, I mean, it's still arguably the best team in the league, but you're missing 2 of your top players. The rest of the players are very good, probably good enough to get them to the playoffs. So they can certainly do it, but their chances of getting there are just a little bit depreciated a little bit by the fact that they're going to be without 2 of their best players. I still think they're good enough, especially in the East, to get to the playoffs. And as we all know, it's really all you have to do. You just have to get there. And once you get there, you can do anything. And if they get there and then they suddenly get this boost where they get Barkov back and Tkachuk is back and he's healthy and everybody else is healthy, well, they've got a chance of doing it, that's for sure. But because the East is not as strong, I don't think, right now as the West. There's a lot of teams trying to, figure some things out, where they're headed next, that kind of thing. And, and some of those are some of the teams that have traditionally been among the better teams in the East, talking about, certainly the Rangers are in that group, and Pittsburgh is in that group. So, we'll see where it goes. But, at the beginning of the year, going into training camp, they were still the odds-on favorite to win it all. They were, there was a lot of talk about them getting the 3-peat and winning 3 straight. So, it's, but again, those chances have taken quite a hit. So we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, they've got a chance. So we can see it happen.
Well, I know it's not hockey season, so it's not at the top of the ledger, but those 2 questions I wanted to touch with Roy right at the top of the show. Of course, we're into the playoffs. we're in the National Football League, which are really just beginning to generate a lot of enthusiasm. And so we'll jump over to baseball in the playoffs. I have to say, Roger, we'll go with you first on this one. I got to say that the preliminary games were exciting to watch, but so far, when we go to the next level, not so good.
Well, you're right. With certain games, I thought the first Milwaukee Dodger game was terrific. It was a continuation of the Phillies-Dodgers, where they were really tight scores, tight games. And, and that may continue. But I'll tell you, I wonder whether the Dodgers will be going back to Milwaukee with 3 games in L.A. now. And I doubt it. I think that that'll be over, which really surprises me. And maybe I was just lulled to sleep about the Brewers, but I'm really surprised. In the American League, they're just starting, as you know, the Seattle and Toronto game, and that seems to be a real good matchup, and we'll see how that goes. But the Dodgers Brewers, I'm just really surprised about. I don't know whether you fellas feel the same way I am.
Roy, I'd like you to comment on the pitching because Snell pitched a spectacular game in game number. In fact, the first 2 pitchers pitched spectacular innings. Both went 8 innings, so you have just 1 hit, no runs, and with all a one-sided Dodger victory, even though they did close in the 9th inning and challenge in game number 1, but they didn't really challenge last night in any way, shape, or form. And I got to give the former general manager of the Rays all the credit in the world. He went out and spent $182 million because he got Snell in there when everybody else sort of backed off. The Mets backed off. The Yankees backed off. He knew him. He knew what kind of pitcher he was in the second half of the season, as he explained time and time again. And boy, did he prove it 2 nights ago.
Well, I'll say this. I'll take on the National League Series first, the National League Championship Series first. And the best thing about it to me is that it's like old school baseball. We're seeing starting pitchers go 8 innings plus. And complete game for last night for Yamamoto, which was fabulous to see. I mean, when's the last? Okay, it's been what? I think they mentioned it 2004. I think it was the last time that we had a pitcher go 8 innings or complete a game in the championship series. So it's been a long time since we've seen that. As you said, Blake Snell goes 8 innings. Certainly could have gone another inning, but that's uncharted territory for him. So I understand why they went to the bullpen. And as far as the Brewers being disappointing, well, look, guys, the old adage is good pitching will beat good hitting every time. And so far through 2 games, the Dodgers pitching has been exceptional. And that'll shut down kind of a punch and Judy type of attack like what the Brewers have. They don't have a lot of power in that lineup. So they're kind of dependent on playing station-to-station baseball, playing a little small ball, stealing bases. But if you can't get on base, you're not going to score runs. But having said that, both games are very close. It wasn't until the 8th inning last night that the Dodgers finally pulled away. So in that series, I think we're seeing, the better team emerge without Shohei Ohtani doing much of anything for his team offensively.
One hit is all he's got so far.
Exactly, yeah. But you know what? Mr. October, Kiki Hernandez is there, so Ohtani can continue to struggle as long as they got Kiki Hernandez. It seems like they'll be all right. Over in the other league, in the AL series, which is starting up again tonight. A little surprised that the Blue Jays haven't been as strong so far. But again, it's just 2 games. But look, if you paid attention, you know that the Mariners are quite capable of doing just about anything. They're very strong in every facet, and they got up to a big jump, start at the beginning of the first game. When you start off with a hit batter and a walk and then a home run, I mean, it's just a double. Those things, they tend to demoralize you. It's hard to come back from those, even in a championship series level. So I won't be surprised at all to see the Blue Jays win a couple of games here in Seattle and even this thing up. But at the end of the day, look, I think the four best teams are in there in the playoffs, in the championship series, and to me, it's been pretty good baseball all the way throughout, including in these series so far.
Roger, Dave Roberts doing just the opposite of last year. He took a bullpen that was very, very questionable going into the playoffs and even into the World Series. That many people thought he was going to really have a tough time staying not only with the Yankees, but just staying in it with that bullpen with the starters. This year, as Roy just indicated, it's been all starting pitching, just the opposite of what he had last year, and how much better his team is going into game number 3. How about that bullpen, Rogers?
Well, yeah, and they're also using starting pitching in the bullpen, which I think has been a real key. No, I give them a lot of credit. I mean, going into the Phillies series, they thought that the bullpen was very suspect. Well, when you have close games and you're using the bullpen, pretty good. And I just, watching the Fox pregame show with the guys, I thought it was so funny that A-Rod had a repeat of the 2009 World Series, Phillies, Yankees winning. And I think Derek Jeter had them winning too. It's amazing how the quote-unquote so-called experts, picked the wrong teams and were out early.
Well, no question. I mean, I can't imagine, Jeter getting on any show and picking any team for the Yankees to win anyway.
Oh, right.
But
I agree. Yeah, I mean, but they were kidding around, and a Big Papi was I don't know whether you saw it when the Yankees were out. But I just think it's interesting. The thing that gets me is that the Dodgers have been so successful with getting Japanese players. And I can remember when years and years ago, okay, we probably the four of us remember, that they said, the Japanese players are way too small to play here. Well, are you telling me that they have just grown like a foot or two? I mean, I understand they probably have grown some. Don't get me wrong. But I just think that was a market that was overlooked. And, of course, you do have some guidelines and some constraints that you just can't go out and sign. They have to be assigned by a Japanese team in the league, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think that they've done a marvelous job, and I wish that the Phillies, to be honest with you, had done anything near what they've done.
Well, guys, I want to jump in on one thing, Don.
Go ahead. Go, yeah.
To go off of something Roger said, I think the fact that one of the reasons that we've seen Snell go 8 innings, and it was kind of a toss-up decision as to whether he'd go into the 9th game 1 here, and why Yamamoto went 9 innings last night is because the bullpen is so suspect with the Dodgers. I mean, all of a sudden, it is this year. A year ago it was not. But this year it is, and we saw it again in the 9th inning of Game 1 when after Snell came out, all of a sudden the Brewers are rallying and they finished with the bases loaded. They're fortunate to get out of the mess that the bullpen got them into in that 9th inning. So I still think the bullpen is quite suspect in L.A. all of a sudden, despite the arms that have been traditionally very good. Alex Bessie has been good. Tanner Scott's been good. They've got plenty of really good arms there. But for whatever reason, they're just not getting the job done right now. And I think that's one of the reasons that Dave Roberts is stuck with his starters for as long as he has. Now, granted, they're pitching lights out baseball. The last pitcher to do what Snell did, which is basically face the minimum through 8 innings over the course of the game in playoffs, was Don Larson. So, through the perfect game. So I think that's got something to do with it. And as far as the Japanese players, one thing you got to keep in mind, it takes a lot of money to sign those guys. The Cubs have been very successful too. But if you look at the history of where the Japanese players have played and where they've been successful, it's New York, L.A., and a little bit Chicago. That's really it. I mean, you don't find too many other places except for, and when I say LA, I guess I'm including the Angels because
The Angels,
again, you've got to have the money there, and because the Dodgers, look, they got Sasaki and Yamamoto this year, but Otani, obviously afraid they have the money to sign those guys, and not everybody's got that money, so that's why teams like Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, Kansas City don't really have a lot of those. If they really have any of those guys, Cleveland, those kind of teams. It's you got to have the big money to go there, and also I think that's where the Japanese players want to go to the bigger markets because those are the teams they know. They know the Yankees, they know the Dodgers, they know the Cubs, and that's where they primarily want to go. And also they want to be on the West Coast because those are the games that their fans back home can see most readily are the games out on the West Coast. And so there's a lot of factors involved.
Weather, I think, Roy.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Weather, yeah, you want to play in a warm weather environment if possible. You want to be with contending teams for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why the Dodgers have succeeded there, where other teams either have not or haven't even tried.
Well, I agree with all of your points. I think money, of course, takes precedent over most, but at the same time, they want to play with Otani. I mean, they want to be in, and you would. To be honest with you, I'm a little surprised that they're going so overboard. Otani, now I know they've walked him a number of times intentionally because of his record during the regular season and, of course, in seasons past. But he's not having a good World Series. I mean, a good playoff. As I said, he had just one hit the other night. It was a ground ball between first and second. He struck out a lot. They've walked him a lot. But he still is, he is the feature. And as you watch the game, you think it was Babe Ruth every time he comes to the plate because, this is the guy that's making baseball right now. Well, I agree. He's a great player. But holy smokes, he hasn't been the reason the Dodgers have won these first couple of games.
No, he hasn't. But still, you don't want to make that mistake and face him, at the moment that he comes out of the slump that he's in. And that's clearly what he's in a slump. That's it. I mean, everybody goes through it. He's in it now, and the Dodgers are surviving. As a result of other guys picking up the slack, which is what the baseball team's got to do in order to win. But you don't want to. You certainly don't want to be in a situation where he figures it out and you throw that mistake, and the next thing you know, it's you're down 3 runs. So that's one of the reasons they're being as careful with him as they are, and rightfully so. If unless they figured something out, and until they figure something out, some way to get him consistently, that you're going to continue to see that.
And even Betts isn't off to a great run. Muncy's doing a better job than anybody, and even as I say, Betts hasn't gotten off the kind of start that he normally playing great in the field. But has not really been a hitting like he was last year.
No.
Even Freeman, Roger, you saw so much of him in Atlanta, and what a job he did as the MVP last year in the World Series. He hit that one home run and had another base hit in game 1. But he hasn't really been doing what he did in past years.
Nobody has done a great job in the field saving a couple of innings, and. But, I think with Otani, he pitched against the Phillies in September and had a marvelous game, a tremendous performance. And then they went to the bullpen and changed things. But I'll tell you, as I recall during the season, of course, the Dodgers don't play the Phillies that often, but the Phillies pretty much had Otani's number. It wasn't that hitting that he really did much against the Phillies, but that one game everybody remembers because he was absolutely spectacular on the mound.
Well, Roy, let's take a look at what do you think? You got 2 clubs that are down 2-0 right now. Milwaukee, who we expected to be very competitive, and they were in that first game, as you indicated. They even came back to make it 4-3 before that fly ball left field with the bases loaded. Took them out of game number 1, and then game number 2 wasn't that close. But can Milwaukee come back down 2, and how about Toronto?
Yeah, I think they both can. I feel stronger about Toronto coming back. Even though I would venture to say that Seattle might have the best starting pitching in the playoffs of all the teams that are left. But I still think Toronto is good enough to get there. Again, they took a real quick hit early on in game one, and it was just hard to come back from that. Game two a little bit tighter, but just weren't strong enough. But I think both teams will at least win one game here on the road. The Brewers, again, I think they'll figure it out. What we've seen out of Snell and Yamamoto is, it's unusual for baseball of this era. We're used to it. I mean, we remember that, back in the day of, watching, games like that. And of course, we grew up watching, Tom Seaver in the World Series and Jim Palmer and Mickey Lolich and, that kind of thing. So we've seen this before, but it's been a while. And it's probably, it's probably rare that you're going to see three starting pitching performances like that in a row for one team. It could happen. I'm not sure who's pitching tomorrow night for the Dodgers. It may be Ohtani's turn. If it is, it could be another tight game. But I still think the Brewers and Blue Jays are fine. I think they'll both win at least one game on the road here and bring it back to their stadiums.
Roger, your thought?
Well, we'll wait and see. I mean, I just think that it's going to be very difficult for either one of them to go on the road and win two games. I really do, and especially with the way, and Roy, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you're not a power hitter like you alluded to with Milwaukee, then you got a problem, okay? Because you got to get on base and drive in runs, and that's what is. It's a shame about Milwaukee, because from what I saw during the season, I was really impressed, and what can I say? I mean, I think it's pretty much over on both LCLs.
Interesting before it started that Murph, when he had his press conference before game number one, he gave all the compliments to the Dodgers. He did a Lou Holtz Notre Dame deal when he was with the Notre Dame. He learned from Lou Holtz. He said, "We don't have 6 players on our team who can even play for the Dodgers. We have no chance. We have no chance." I'll tell you, he is really a character. And the other thing is, I like about him. He stays in the background. He doesn't get out in the front of the dugout all the time, and he stands in the back and he sort of directs from behind rather than being on camera all the time. Roy?
Yeah, he does. No, you're right. He is. Look, he's a tried and true baseball lifer, and I don't think there's any question in Milwaukee that when Craig Counsell left, that he was going to take over the team. I mean, he'd been kind of the chief lieutenant there for a few years under Craig Counsell, and no surprise that he's running the team, and he's done a great job. And look, that organization deserves a lot of credit. In a division that's often kind of maligned, but still, managed 3 playoff teams this year. The National League Central Division. The Brewers have done a tremendous job of staying on top of that division over the course of the last decade, and you know what? Good for them. I hate them, but at the end of the day, you got to give them credit for putting together a really good team. And again, I still think they're gonna. I think they'll be fine. I still think they're going to win at least one game in LA and possibly 2. They're strong enough to do it. They just have to. They just got to get some people on base, and that won't be that hard. They'll be able to get it done.
Roger, we're gonna go with Billy Warndell in the next segment. So we'll be talking football, we'll be talking Eagles, but I want to jump in with. We talked about Freeman last week and the fact that he had that momentum going in week number 3, then lost it in week number 4. He seems to have picked it up again in week number 5.
Well, yeah, but that we can only assume that it's going to continue. To be honest with you, and I'm very first. We're not going to talk NFL until Billy comes on, I guess, right? Don.
Well, not too much. I just want to touch on Atlanta because you're right there and you saw them play on Sunday, and they won by 14. I was a little surprised.
Yeah, well, no, they look good, but I can tell you they're talking about it today that you have to show me and prove it. It's just not one game, but they did look good, but there were a lot of games on this past weekend. I mean, Buffalo losing. There were just a lot of surprises, I think, and we're going to talk about the Ravens later. I mean, that's just a mess. But I'm not counting the Falcons out, but I am counting the Bucs in. That's the way I look at it.
Well, you have to count the Bucs. You have to count the Bucs in because they've just gotten off to a real good start.
Absolutely.
And their quarterback has done almost everything he could possibly do to win the 4 games that they've won already. And Roy, you see them every week. We're fortunate enough now. You had mentioned this. I brought this up to a couple of people this week that when we did the show, how many times the Buccaneers are going to be on TV, and they're going to be on nationally again this week. So we're getting a chance to see them here in the Northeast much more than we normally would. And I'll tell you, they are certainly looking, and their quarterback is looking like every dollar's worth of dime that they're put into them is worth it.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, that is a move that is really paying off for the Buccaneers in a lot of ways. And right now, I guess he's the odds-on favorite to, let's put it this way: he's the first quarter MVP of the league. And I don't think anybody would have picked that prior to the beginning of the season, including me. I wouldn't have picked him for MVP, but I certainly would have picked him to be among the top 5 or 8 quarterbacks in the league. And here we are with the quarter poll guys, are a little bit past it now. And, I just mentioned a much maligned division in the National League Central in baseball. Well, the NFC South is much maligned. It doesn't get a whole lot of credit, and obviously the Carolina Panthers are down, Saints are down, but look, the Bucs are as good a team as there is in the NFC, easily. They're as good as any team in the NFC. And right now you've got a running back in Atlanta, Bijan Robinson, who's on pace to break the all-time yardage record. He's on pace to get almost 3,000 total yards. So it's quite remarkable what's happened with 2 teams there in the South. And they're both worth watching, extensively. Michael Penix has proven to be a pretty good quarterback. Look, he's young. He's going to make mistakes. It'll probably cost him a game or 2. But at the end of the day, he's also going to win him a lot of games. So Tampa and Atlanta are 2 teams to watch, and and they're both.
Hello.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good. How's it going, Frank?
Doing great, thank you. I'm glad you get your feet wet now that you're back from your vacation.
Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of questions for you, so be ready.
Okay.
How did Franklin get $76 million? That's more like God.
Oh, it's 49 million.
Oh,
not
40?
76.
Okay. Yeah,
Jimbo Fisher got 76 when he got fired from A&M.
Yeah, that's probably what I had mixed up.
But still, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
$21,000 a day.
Yeah.
5 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Well, you know why? You know how that happened? They renewed him to a 10-year contract a few years ago. I don't know how, unless you're Nick Saban or Kirk Ferentz, I don't know how anybody signs somebody to a 10-year contract.
No, that's for sure.
With where you got to pay out that much if you end up, I don't know. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they give anybody a 10-year contract anyways. That's
for sure.
How often does a coach last 10 years
right.
anywhere?
Right. All right, I'm going to plug you in with the guys we're still talking to. Yeah. We're finishing up with Roy.
Okay.
At the 14 yards, but he reached the ball over the first down marker, and he gave his team a chance to keep the drive alive. I thought that was the play of the game.
Yeah, totally agree. And you're absolutely right. It was the play of the game. And again, that's the play that's become a signature play, that type of play, for Baker Mayfield. I mean, a quarterback who's willing to put his body on the line like that, reach across the first down marker to make sure he gets the first down at a critical juncture. I mean, these are the things that he does. Again, I've said it before. He's not a quarterback. He's a football player, and there's a difference. Yeah, I mean, certainly he plays quarterback, and he's as good as there is in the league, but he's a football player, and he's got a football player mentality. He doesn't have a quarterback mentality because 90% of the quarterbacks in the NFL wouldn't even attempt that play. And a lot of guys who do run the ball at quarterback, they'll try it, but they probably won't. But they're probably going to slide, feet first, shortly, either before the line or just after it. But here's a guy, going head first all the way, reaching across the line, and you're right, it was a signature play.
Hey,
Roger, we got a minute and a half to go in this segment. We'll let you close it out with Roy.
Yeah, perfect, because talking about the NFC South, I think it's very interesting about Carolina is really looking pretty good early in the season. But, the big news that may be coming down the pike is that Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, are 25 in the nation. And, of course, Don did Matt Rule's games at Temple when he had Temple turned around. And it looks like Matt Rule may be the next coach at Penn State.
Well, the best part of that, Roger, is that the payoff, because some of the other coaches that are being mentioned right now, their buyouts are so much higher. Rules is still relatively simple, but at the same time, Franklin is getting $52 million to walk away from that contract, and Penn State is going absolutely nuts. Roy?
hey,
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Penn State's reaching out to a lot of people. They're reaching out to Notre Dame to see if they can get. There's a lot of coaches out there that would love to, be the next coach. But here's the thing: I get the feeling that they for whatever reason, and I know we got to wrap it up. I'll leave you with this. For whatever reason, Penn State acted so soon, in my opinion, way too soon, letting the coach go in a different era of college football where you're not going to have too many undefeated teams. You're going to have a lot of one-loss, two-loss teams in the playoffs. Sometimes you just got to work through it. And I think they were a little bit, too quick to pull the trigger here. And we'll see what they come up with. I'm not sure it's going to be much better. If it's Matt Rule, that might work out really well for to rally some troops around Penn State again, but they're going to have to spend an awful lot of money to get this thing corrected. And I know they've got it. Good thing, because they're going to need it.
I was surprised that his buyout wasn't that high. I thought it would be higher than it was. And Matt Diaz may be more difficult trying to get him to come out of Duke and go. He's the second choice. Bill O'Brien, of course, was there originally before he took the job in the National Football League with the Texans and now with Boston College. His buyout is also not too high. And Signetti from Indiana is another big choice, possibly to go to Penn State. They're the four guys that I've read most about that they're interested in reviewing. So,
Rule's a graduate, right? Went to State College High School, played for Joe Pa, loves the Paterno family, and I didn't know a lot of this about him until I read a lot today, to be honest with you, about. And I remember, the downside the poor guy had with with Carolina when he was in the NFL.
Yeah, you're right.
Don, we're joined by Mike. We're joined by Mike Schultze. I think he has a little bit more on that Franklin story we were talking about.
Oh, Mike Schultze is on with us now? Okay, I didn't think he was. All right, before we go to Billy Wardell, we're going to go to Mike Schultze. So let's go in that direction. Once again, Roy, thank you for the first half hour as always. And let's go to Mike now, because the payouts on some of these guys is just like astronomical.
Yeah, it is. And of course, the record, to my knowledge, was Jimbo Fisher, $76 million from A&M. He's still collecting on. It's pretty crazy. The part of the reason with Franklin's large buyout is that he signed a 10-year
they signed him to a 10-year contract a few years ago. I'm not sure what year he's in on it. Probably halfway through it, maybe. That's a long contract. And I mentioned that only because think about how many coaches have coach at a major college school, a head coach, have lasted 10 years or more. I can think of Dick Saban and Kirk Ferentz, of course, has been at Iowa for about 20 some years. Right. And then obviously Franklin has been there a total of about 10 years or 11 years. But, I'm not sure when they renewed his contract, but when they, like I said,
I just got a text from Bill.
A 10-year deal on a head coach.
Granny said that he just got back from dinner
forever, no matter what,
with his nephew.
Or you're setting yourself up to
Bill Green.
To pay a large payout.
Bill Graney said he just got back from dinner with his nephew's birthday. He's very weak, but everything's okay.
That's how you get such a
He's weak, but okay.
Payout like that you're obligated to when you sign such a long-term contract like that. And I'm just surprised that I'm not in that business, but as an athletic director or somebody, I don't know. I'd have a hard time signing somebody to that long of a contract in that business because it's so volatile and it's so up and down. And like I said, unless you're fully committed to an actual 10-year deal, it's you leave yourself open to a big payout down the road somewhere. Because most of these coaches, whether they leave for another school or not, or on their own or whatever, they're typically maybe 4 or 5 years. Maybe 6 years, something like that. I mean, Kirby's been at Georgia, probably about 9 years or so. So, but it's a rarity. So that's one of the issues, with these super large buyouts like that. And I think Jimbo Fisher was the same kind of thing. He had such a long contract that when they got rid of him after 3 years, he still had 7 years left on the contract.
Well, as I say, it's very interesting to see, and I would have thought Rule would have had a little bit higher number than he did, 5, and of course this contract is worth $12.5 million if he goes the limit. So they've got a lot of room to make a move there. Roger, you're up.
Well, I think I'm not so sure that the AD at Penn State was the AD when the contract. If it was 5 years ago, I'm not sure that he was there, Mike. I don't know. I know.
I agree. I'm just saying, for an athletic director to commit to a head coach for 10 years, that's just a long time. And like you said, whether it's you or the next guy behind you, somebody along the way is probably going to have a huge payout that they're going to have to, pay if this guy doesn't perform year in and year out like that. Yeah. And it's an interesting dynamic that these ADs and stuff, they sign these guys to such long-term deals with such huge numbers, and then so often they never end up lasting that long anyways, and then you're in a situation like they are right now where they now they got a huge. It's not to say that they won't somehow come up with the money, but when you're sitting there, complaining about how you don't have enough money for your players, all your athletes, you're having to cut an Olympic sport or a men's and women's Olympic sport or a women's program because you don't have enough money, and then you turn around and you're paying these guys, tens of millions of dollars to not coach at your school. That's I think that's a tough pill to swallow for alumni and boosters that you're asking. You go back out and asking for more money for NIL when you just had to blow $50 or $70 million on a coach you fired because he wasn't as good as you thought he would be. I'm just saying that's just got to be a tough situation for these athletic directors and the presidents to have to swallow that kind of a pill. And you sort of wonder, again, and I'm pie in the sky, but you wonder, if maybe somewhere along the way, people start getting a little bit wiser in regards to these contracts and stuff to maybe not do such long-term deals and maybe do more rollover deals, or something, with these things, so that, because like you said, it's just so rare that you end up, the fans and alumni and the boosters, they get tired of coaches pretty quick these days. That much. I mean, Franklin, 3 weeks ago, he was a overtime play away from being the number one team in the country, and 3 weeks later he's fired.
Yeah.
It's a crazy business to be in.
Well, the other side, fire the Alabama coach the first week of the season after that one loss.
Yeah, now he's on the Bear Bryant watch list for Coach of the Year. Yeah. That's what I mean. It's just, it didn't help. It didn't help that the Penn State lost. Followed up their loss, to Oregon to the two worst teams at the time in the Big Ten Conference. I mean, obviously that was the straw, but yeah, it's just like, you're like, okay, well, this is, business that you're in, I guess. I don't know. It's crazy right now.
Well, Mike, you may know a lot more about it than I do, because we talked about it at the end of last week's show, because there was a lot of publicity centering around North Carolina and Belichick and what was going to happen, and the fact that just what you're talking about, the people in charge, the administrators, the board of directors at the University of North, they were not involved in the negotiation for this $10 million deal. And the buyout now, as I understand, is $1 million. Plus, he has to have another job before they can actually. And now they're going to court. I don't know any more about it than I knew this time last week. I really haven't seen anything this week. I thought there would be some follow-ups. Maybe you know more than I do.
No, I haven't really been following that deal, that ordeal, I should say, very much. It's been a circus from the beginning, it seems like, there. And I'm not sure who's making those decisions there. I'll say this in general, and this is my personal feeling, just that, when you start getting boosters and alumni involved in making these decisions, more so than the administrators and all that, it's, you really leave yourself open to some bad situations. And, I don't know what the circumstances were with, hiring him and all that, but, if you're letting the tail wag the dog a little bit, you're putting yourself, you're really risking putting yourself in a really bad situation, from an administrator standpoint. And, it's been going on a long time, of course, but, it doesn't make it any easier. And these days, with the money being as big as it is and all these decisions, more so than it used to be, it really, I think, even heightens the level of problems that you're dealing with, because you are dealing with so much money these days with all these things, more so than it used to be. And, there's always been pressure on firing a coach or hiring a certain coach and all that kind of stuff when you're talking about the dollars and such that you're talking about now. And the fact, as I mentioned, that these schools are all sort of crying poor, so to speak, to get as much money as they can now that they're having to pay the athletes and all that kind of stuff. It makes these problems, a lot even bigger, because of the dollars involved.
Roger? Don, from what I read today, excuse me, you may be more familiar with this. The AD at Penn State, when Rule was at Temple, was an assistant AD at Temple. And you were there. You were doing the games then, right? Right. Are you familiar at all with him, or is this like now all of a sudden this AD is coming to surface because of the Franklin firing?
That was the first I had seen that, Roger. When you mentioned it, I had not read that, so I did not know it. But you're right, he was at Temple, but being an assistant, really you don't get that much interaction. You know what I mean? So I really can't give any first-hand information about it because I knew who he was and knew him, but I didn't actually have any dealings with him whatsoever.
Yeah. But I think, Mike, the point is there's a friendship there, with Rule. And but it's the old story, never hire someone you can't fire. Okay?
Well, that's what I've always said. Yeah, I totally agree. And the other thing, too, is that, how many times, not that it can't be a good situation, but look at how many times schools get into that mode of, oh, we got to hire a Michigan guy. We got to hire a Penn State guy. We got to hire an Alabama guy. And then after you do that 2 or 3 times and it doesn't work out, you're like, maybe we can go outside and go, get somebody else. So, I know that's always the first thing that media especially tends to jump on. It's like, oh, who's going to take his place? Oh, well, you got to go out and find the guys who used to play at Penn State or the guys who were assistant coaches at Penn State or, that kind of stuff. And it's like, let's make sure it's the right fit, not just somebody who, happened to play there or whatever. I mean, it's, because you've seen a lot of those things blow up in their faces when they, when that's the criteria you use. So, hopefully Penn State job is a terrific, program, one of the top 10 jobs year in and year out in college football, right? So you're going to be able to get, somebody good. So hopefully I'm sure they'll do their due diligence and try and, really see what's out there. But, the other part going backwards, to this whole thing, and especially when you're firing somebody in October, that's, you're firing somebody so early in the season, you're asked if you're going after these other coaches, say Rule at Nebraska, for instance, you're asking him to leave his program in the second month of the season,
right?
And commit to giving up, so to speak, on my words, on the program that he's trying to turn around there, at that point in the season, not the end of the season. That kind of thing, and
only his second year too.
Yeah, it makes it tough to go out and find somebody. And I the other saying you said, don't hire anybody you're not willing to fire. Well, try not to fire somebody until you have a really good idea that you're going to be able to get somebody better to replace them.
That's a good point.
Well, I tell you, you've been on vacation the last couple of weeks. We've missed you, and we haven't really gotten any information on your bowl. And how about you go back to the beginning because where you stand right now, and let's talk about the starting times, ticket availabilities in different sections, and just give it a little shot so that people know what we're talking about here.
Yeah, shout out, Reliquis Bowl in Tampa. Yep, we're looking forward to another great game this year. Big Ten SEC, December 31st at noon Eastern time. Tickets will go on sale in November, probably mid-November, for the game for individual tickets. We have VIP ticket packages available now directly through the bowl. But we're looking forward to another great game. Last year, of course, we had Michigan, Alabama, in a heck of a matchup, and so we're excited about it. We're finalizing all our plans for all the events leading up to the game and, of course, game day, and we're excited to learn who our teams will be on December 7th when the team announcement takes place. So, we're excited. As the season goes through, week after week. I think we talked about this as the season kicked off, right? You get to around the end of September, mid-October, you start really knowing who's good and who's not as good, because it's so hard to project before the season starts, how good teams really are because of, the transfer portal in particular and NIL and all that. And so many roster changes every year. It's really hard to determine. And here you got, I know like a week ago you had three teams, three of the top four teams, I think it was, in the preseason polls weren't even ranked last week, so it's you just don't know anymore. When the season starts, you have to really give it a month or 6 weeks to understand how good teams are or aren't. And Penn State's a great example. They were number 2, I think, preseason, and now obviously they're struggling a bit. So and then you got the opposite situation for some other teams. So it's fun right now to be able to sort of see, you've been able to see a lot of good games, a lot of good competition, and 5-6 weeks under the belt for these programs, and it's really starting to become somewhat clear as to how good a lot of these teams are, and the fact that there doesn't seem to be any team that's just just completely dominating out there. I don't think you're going to have any team get to the season undefeated, and I think that pretty much you'll be lucky to have more than one team that at the end of the season that only has one loss. I think you're going to have 2 to 3 losses on pretty much all the top 10 teams by the time we get through it.
Ohio State's been the one that's been able to hold on so far, and Oregon took the big dive after playing so well at Penn State, watching that game, and going into overtime. And Roger, you're up.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, there's been some great games, not necessarily like the first week of the season, the first weekend, Mike, that we talked about how great it was. But they really have. There's been some really great games, and one of them I only got to see some of it, and was close to my heart. And it looked like Temple was going to beat undefeated Navy, but Navy came back and won by 1.
What a game that was! What a game!
Great game. Yeah. So it doesn't make any difference what level you play on. There's been some really great games this year.
Yeah, they really have, and been some good matchups. And they're not all top 5 teams playing each other necessarily, but there's still a lot of really good games out there. I mean, that's just it's been fun to watch. It really has. So it's and again, now you're starting to learn a little bit more about the makeup of some of these teams and how good they are, how not good they are. But it's just fun to sort of see it all unfold, and then and again then trying to project out the rest of the season. Florida, a lot of people gave them a lot of hard time, starting out and stuff, and they had such a hard schedule, and they've been battling through it. They've lost some games. They also won some games so far that people didn't expect, and now you're sitting there looking at them, it's like, well, they got enough talent to win any game left on their roster. They probably won't win all of them because there's so many good opponents, but week in and week out, they could beat anyone on their schedule, and you can say that about so many of these other teams as well. And you looked at what happened with Georgia and Auburn last week, and obviously I know there was a little bit of controversy there on that one touchdown play, but aside from that, Auburn looked like they couldn't be beaten the first half, and then Georgia came back and they got it together and ended up winning the game. So, but if Auburn plays like that, next week and the week after that, who knows? A few weeks ago you would have thought, well, at the end of the season, that Auburn-Alabama game didn't give you much of a game, but now you're saying, well, that could go either way. So it's been fun to me to watch these teams and see who, the capabilities they have and try and, guess, how they're going to finish out the second half of the season.
Yeah, just to go back to what Roger was saying about that Temple Navy game, really an incredible game all the way through. And I got to give the coach of Navy all the credit in the world. I mean, he ties the game up with 3 seconds to go, 2 seconds to go. I should say tied it up. He was 1 point back. Had to kick the extra point to tie the game, and he goes for the win. he doesn't even he doesn't even say, look, we're going to kick it tight, go into overtime. He said, we're going to win this game, and with no time left, and they throw a little pass, and it was completed, and they win it by a point, 22-21, or I can't remember the score now, to be honest with you. But
1 point.
Yeah.
The 1 point win.
And isn't it amazing, though, because if he does that and they don't make the 2-point conversion, then everybody's like, why the hell didn't he just kick the extra point?
That's right.
But when you make the play, you're like, oh, the guy's a genius.
Well, the other one was we talked about the last time you were on with us before you went on vacation was the University of South Florida, and they did lose Miami, which we anticipated, but we said if they could win one out of the first 3 would be good, and then go into with the third game being fourth game being Miami, they come away 1-3, but they didn't. They came away 2-3, and now they've gone from there to where they are now, and it's been a remarkable recovery for a new coach who's only been there a couple of years.
Yeah, and you know they have now. You know, I looked at their schedule a week ago, yeah, and I think they had 7 games left on the schedule at that point. They had 4 games against teams that have 500 or less records as of right now, as of that point. But they had to play 3 teams that have undefeated records, and they played one of them last week, and they demolished them. So that's one out of the way. But my point is that outside of Memphis maybe and Navy, they're going to be probably favored at least in all the rest of their games. They could very easily finish 10-2 this year in the regular season. After starting out, when you looked at their schedule before the season started, you could have very easily figured they were going to start out 0-3, and instead they're potentially, if they stay healthy and the quarterback stays healthy, especially, they legitimately could be a 10-2 team at the end of the season. That's why I was saying, like, it was great, as you get to see these teams over the course of a few weeks. You go from what you thought they might look like in the preseason to now you're realizing what they really have, and the fact that hey, some of these teams like South Florida, they could win 10 games this year and go to the
the interesting part about that is the way he's turned it. I mean, first of all, he's turned it around in a very short period of time. I mean, they were just at the bottom of the barrel for so long.
Yeah.
He turned it.
Hey, sir, how are you?
Good, Frank. What's happening?
I gave him your message earlier, but
He called me right away.
okay.
I'm ripping him on the air right at the outset.
Okay, I'll put you right into the mic. Thanks.
He came in late in the season when the other quarterbacks got injured, and I saw him play, and I said, if they can keep him there, they finally found their quarterback, because they hadn't had what I would consider a top-notch quarterback for a long time, for a number of those years when they were down, and
They got one now.
and he's now in his senior year. He didn't leave, and I think that's such a key part today, as we talked about the quarter bowl, that he's been able to build that program and keep the good players there, and then add to them to get to this point, because, so often as we see every year, that guys leave, especially a program more considered a more mid-level program like they are, considered, in regards to the, normally you say, oh, you get, this guy as quarterback, he, had a great year. Next thing you know, he's off to Auburn or, Penn State or Georgia or somebody, and that kind of stuff. And schools
Especially quarterbacks. Quarterbacks jump like flies.
Yeah, they don't get to keep him. So the fact that he's been able to keep these guys there, so many key guys, and build off of that, he's been able to build up this program like you would hope, he'd be able to do. And that's, like you said, in this day of the portal and NIL, that's really hard to do. And so all credit to him to keep this team intact and help them build, up to where they're at right now. So I'm really excited to see what they do the rest of the year.
Roger?
Well, I was just going to say about Temple. It's just amazing. The coach that's there, we talked about this with Bill Warndell a couple of weeks ago, and Casey Keeler, he was at Delaware, and I think then he went to Bowling Green, and he may haven't had another stop. And here he is at Temple, really doing a terrific job, and and not really known. I think didn't he win the national championship at Delaware 1 year, the BCS, I guess, right? And it's great to see a guy who has paid his dues, been all over the place, taking a team that was pretty much dead, the program, and resurrecting it, and just doing a really good job where you have a great game against Navy and it gets a lot of notoriety. I mean, I really am very, very proud that what he's done at Temple. I really am.
Hey, Don, we're joined by Billy Warndell.
All right, Mr. Wardell's ready to go, and it's our time in this segment is run out. Mike, thank you so very, very much. Today we get a couple of little plugs in for the bowl at 12 noon, and we're looking forward to it, and we'll have you back with us next week to talk about college football. And just as importantly, we look forward to the teams that you're going to get between the SEC and the Big Ten for your bowl.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Always fun talking college football.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
Billy Warndell is on the line with us right now, one of the outstanding sportscasters in the city of Philadelphia and around the country. Was out in San Diego for quite a long time. And I want to talk about those Padres because they just lost their manager, but there seems to be a lot of dispute about why he left and so forth. I know Billy will have a comment on that. But Billy, before we do that, as Roger just brought up in the last segment, you were very high on the new coach at Temple and what he's been able to do, and so far he's pretty much followed your guidelines.
Well, he's a very good coach. But Don Henderson, you have a cell phone that was developed by one Alexander Graham Bell. It is the worst cell phone in the history of mankind. Please get an iPhone. It's not that expensive. Now, Roger, I'll give you the background on Casey Keeler. He was on the Eagles camp with Dick Vermeil. Then he worked with John Bunny at Rowan, became the head coach at Rowan. Then went to Delaware. You were right on point with Delaware. Then, when he left Delaware, he was out of coaching for, I think, a year or so. Then he went to Sam Houston State in Texas and he took them from a Division I AA to a Division I school. And in 2 years, he had them in a bowl game. That's how good a coach he is. Wow. And he goes to the downtrodden Temple Owls. They should have won the game on Saturday. It was unfortunate. But this man has Temple on the right track. And he has a game plan for recruiting, and he's done one heck of a job. I can't say enough good things about Casey Keeler. And anybody he had 32 Division I prospects, and he was able to keep 24 of them in the recruiting process.
Woo. And Temple really needed, since Rule, they just haven't had a frontline coach that could really not only recruit, but then develop the players that he had on hand. And you look at Rule, and he took Temple University, which was struggling, and he took them right up to games against teams like Penn State and took them right to the wire. I mean, he was able to do it before he made the transition out of Temple University. And I just hope that we're a little bit more fortunate and that he'll stay a couple of more years. Right?
Now, Casey Keeler has told me this is the last stop on the train. Last place. His wife is very happy. They live in Delaware. They're very happy in the area. They have grandchildren. Casey said he's staying at Temple no matter what. Now, I don't know if the people at Penn State are smart enough to say, hey, we have to make a run at this guy at Temple. Now, I don't know if Casey would leave for the Penn State job, but if you're asking me if I was Carr and he was at Temple for a while before he went to Penn State,
Right.
if I'm Carr, I'm talking to the agent of Casey Keeler to see if there's any interest whatsoever. She knows how to build a program, and that's so important in college athletics today.
Billy Wardell, our special guest this segment, and boy, we got things to talk about in Philadelphia. Roger, I'll let you kick it off, whether you go to the Eagles or whether you go to the Phillies and what happened to them and their demolished run at trying to get to the World Series.
Well, I'll tell you, Bill, we didn't expect it to end the way it did, a repeat of last year against the Mets.
Roger, what did I tell you? Roger, what did I tell you? The one concern I had was going to these playoff games. What did I tell you and Don about 3 weeks ago? What was my biggest cause?
First, be concerned about the draw.
And also, I said they can ill afford to have their big three shut it down, like they did last year against the Mets, and the 2 years against Arizona in games at Citizens Bank Park. Their starting pitching is outstanding. And I'm going to tell you something. It was proven over and over again in the first 2 games of the Dodgers series. Snell is just rolling through the lineup of the Brewers. They decided to take him out in the 9th inning, and they almost coughed up the lead. Last night, Yamamoto was in the game, and Dave Roberts said, the hell with a bullpen, he's going the route. So that's the way we have to get back to basics in pitching. Let these starters go the route. Let them go and get complete games. I mean, it's so absurd what is happening in baseball today. It's mind-boggling. And I'll tell you one thing. These clubs better look at these analytics people and say, they are not leading us down the right road. This launch angle, velocity off the bat, you can stick it in an outhouse and flush it. All right? Flush it.
Amen.
It's these hitting. Again, you have Harper. They move into the shortstop hole at the third baseman. He can hit down left field line and run for at least a double every time. He doesn't have to jack it out of the ballpark. And the other thing I'm getting a little concerned with Harper, the last 2 playoff games and the last couple of years, he's been getting hurt and hurt. Doesn't that concern people? And he still has 6 years left on that contract, boys.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it, Billy, with those long-term contracts. You're very successful the first 2 or 3 or maybe even 4. But when you get to that 8 and 9 range, you're really testing the luck of your player and the desire to have that kind of dedication every single day to play the way you have to play in this game.
Don, the other thing is the steroid has been eliminated. Now, I'm not saying the new chemist in town is not having a new type of supplement, but again, it's ridiculous to even think about a contract longer than 4 years. Harper was offered a 5-year deal, $200 million from the Dodgers. Take it or leave it. And Boris said, I'm going to find the sucker, and he certainly did.
Roger?
Yeah, he's looking for suckers for other guys, too. No doubt about that. But, Bill, we want to talk, obviously, about the Eagles. But I did want to, what did you think about Topper being, Rod Thompson being brought back?
I think we have to know the dynamics. How much power does Topper have as far as the lineup's concerned, the changes, the whole deal? That's the thing I want to know, and we'll never know that because the Phillies or any other organization will not reveal that. But Topper's a baseball man. He grew up on baseball. Wouldn't you let him have the opportunity to run his own ship. Look, I don't mind information. Information is important. But the one thing with baseball today, these managers, with a few exceptions, have all this stuff in front of them. And they look at it. You know, you as a manager have to manage on gut feel a lot of times. You know when a guy is ready. You know when a guy's not up to snuff. I mean, but they take that away from them with all this crap they sent down. I mean, you don't need the Encyclopedia Britannica on the bench every game. You don't need that. But I don't know. You know, Topper's done a good job. Look, they really righted the ship after it took over for Joe Girardi. They got to the World Series the first year. 2023, they got eliminated by Arizona. Last year, they got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs when they got in by the Mets, and this year they got eliminated. I don't think it put it all on Topper's shoulders. I think he's a good baseball man if they let him be a baseball man. But a lot of these teams have spent so much money on analytics, that's not going to happen.
Bill, let's go to the focal point of the day. If there's a Sunday that is important to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Can I say one thing? Yeah. Before we get to the Eagles, because I'm more than willing to take as much time as you want. If the Padres are smart, they hire Bruce Bochy.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that, but is he going to be willing to make a move? What's he going to do? He already retired once. Is he going to?
He can never retire. He can never retire.
Oh, yeah, he can always unretire. That's no question about that.
How many times have you?
And you know well because you were in San Diego when he was there. So
best manager ever been around. All right, best manager. But I'm saying to you, if you're smart, you pick up the phone and say, do you want to stay retired or do you want to still manage? I think he still wants to manage.
I hope you're right. Well, let's move over to the Eagles because we got to have some time for the Eagles tonight. Because this has been one of the surprises of the 25 season.
You're right about that, Don. And you can't put it all on injuries. It's just the offense is not getting out of its own way. The injuries have cropped up so many times. Remember last year they were almost injury-free.
Right.
The guys they lost in free agency. A guy just retired only 4 weeks after signing a contract. I mean, there are issues. They're a 4-2 team now. Are they listening? That this is a very important game in Minnesota. A very important game. They've got to put this team back on its haunches. They have to get this team back in the right groove because if they don't, they're not going to Santa Clara for the Super Bowl. No question about it. But when I look at the Eagles right now, their offensive line is not coming off the ball like it did a year ago. I think Kerrigan is hurt. Landon Dickerson is not in the lineup, and he's a strong protector of Cam Jurgens. They have a new right guard in Tyler Steen. Remember, they lost Mekhi Becton, who was 6'7", 375 pounds, and he was a great run blocker. And again, their defense has made so many missed tackles. It's almost embarrassing. Fangio does a good job, but he can't go out there and tackle them. And I'll tell you this: I am sick and tired of protecting players in the preseason. Play the veterans at least, a quarter every. They have three exhibition games. The veterans should play a quarter in every one of those games because a lot of these guys aren't ready for prime time when you don't hit and you don't play in a game in the preseason. I don't want to hear about injuries. We've had 12 new starting quarterbacks since the start of the season, 12. And that number is going to keep on climbing. So that's the big problem. They don't work in the preseason like it's a regular season game. I'm not saying you keep them out there for 3 quarters. That's ridiculous. But every preseason game, starters should be in the game for at least a quarter.
Roger?
Bill, a couple of things. Number one, Kevin gets straightened out. And do you think that the offensive calls have to be changed from the OC?
Well, I certainly think you have to take advantage of the strong points of your offense. Jalen Hurts can run. They haven't run that many RPOs this year.
Right.
Saquon Barkley is not a guy that shouldn't be set on his haunches and stop at the line of scrimmage every time. I mean, this guy is a elite back in the National Football League. So they've got to find some imaginative ways of getting the ball in Barkley's hand. Use Hurts in certain situations. I mean, when you have a game like that a couple games ago, where Hurts does not complete a pass in the second half, that's unacceptable. Unacceptable, my friend. All right? And you've got to be able to get your offensive line coming off the ball. There may be age with Lane Johnson, too. You can't just dismiss that and say, well, Lane Johnson is a good player, but he's 35 years old and he's been talking about retirement. And that's what bothers me. When you talk about retirement, you're retired.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Frank, you got a question you want to chat in here with Billy?
No, no, I'm listening here, John. Yeah, Billy, what do you think? There's a lot of speculation on how the officiating is going this year. There's some really stupid calls and games lost because of calls. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree with you more, Frank. This thing about the taunting. I mean, look, I'm not a subscriber to taunting, all right? I'm not a subscriber. But they've gone overboard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just going overboard. As you said, many games have been decided on calls that should not have been made.
Right.
You should warn the players, say, hey, you do it again, I'm throwing the flag. I'm going to give you a warning. Now, if it's real blatant, then you have to throw the flag.
Mm-hmm.
But many of these calls have not been really that blatant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. If you give them a warning, you do it again, I'm going to throw the penalty.
Right. Yeah, there was a lot of upset people around here on the Lions game last week after you have Gus making a touchdown and then having it brought back because they said that they weren't lined up properly. That's was to us was we couldn't even see the difference. And the kid brings up that same thing that the referees love the Chiefs and they hate the Eagles. The Eagles get penalized more than any other team, I think, and the Chiefs get zero.
Well, I'm not going to say that they get a special hall pass with the officiating crew of the NFL. I know what you're saying. And the other thing that people are really overlooking, the MVP in the National Football League, Don, Roger, Frank, who is the MVP right now in the National Football League?
Baker Mayfield.
You got that right. Baker Mayfield. This guy was discarded by the hapless Cleveland Browns, who can't get out of their own way. They changed quarterbacks like you change underwear.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, he went to the Rams. He bounced around with, I think, Carolina, the Rams. Comes to Todd Bowles, and Todd Bowles and his offensive coordinator work with him and make him a very viable candidate for the National Football League MVP. One heck of a player, has a lot of moxie, knows how to get his team ready to play. And another thing that never gets spoken about, they talk about this great coach, that great coach. Todd Bowles is one hell of a coach and does not get the recognition he deserves.
Yeah, because unfortunately, like so many of the coaches, I mean, you know whether the coach at the Jets is any good or not because they don't need players. And the same thing with Todd Bowles. When he was with the Jets, he didn't have any players. You got to have players. And then if you have players and then you can't develop those players into being winners, then you're not a very good coach. But if you're, go out to any other teams in the National Football League and look at their coaching staff and the people that they hire and how organized is their teams. And I think another thing, Billy, the National Football League's got to start to police the game a little bit better. I mean, these guys doing all these somersaults in the end zones, and you tell me what taunting is. How are you gonna penalize a team for taunting when they say something or throw something down, a helmet down on and then the guy in the end zone jumps all around doing somersaults? What is taunting? I don't know what it is anymore.
Well, that's a very good question, Don. That's an excellent question. That's something for an NFL official to discuss on your show. What is taunting?
Hey, Mike, how you doing? Hello?
Hey,
Okay. I'm going to bend you in. I know you want to get part of Billy's.
The end zone is lined up. I mean, it's absurd.
Don, we're old school. And you talk about building program. The guy that really started to do a good job of building a football program was Dick Vermeil. You remember, because you did a show with him on WCAU, Dick Vermeil had nothing to work with. No draft picks, no free agency. Took 19 undrafted players to the Super Bowl. 5 years after he was named head coach. That is coaching. And the guys that are self-promoters seem to get a lot of cachet from the big-time media markets. And, the NFL Network and the ESPN and Fox. Oh, this guy is a great coach. That's why I mentioned Todd Bowles. I don't think he gets enough credit. You talk about the Jets. Woody Johnson is the owner, and as long as he's the owner, they're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, Glenn just doesn't seem to be ready to make a move in the right direction. I mean, he's got a lot of coaching background in different organizations on both sides of the ball, but unfortunately, it just doesn't look like whether the combination of talent just isn't there, he doesn't have enough, or whether it's the coaching staff that he hired to support him. I don't know what it is, but boy, they are terrible games. I mean, you can't watch most of them. And in fact, there's so many games now, Billy. You compare, 5 years ago when you used to watch the National Football League, and today when you watch the National Football League, you got to be a lot more selective about the games you're going to watch because there are a lot of bad games.
There certainly is. I mean, they go over to England to play Denver. And you looked at at halftime that game before they go into halftime. They were 30 seconds at time enough to run 3 or 4 more plays, and they were so disjointed, so disorganized, it looked like a Chinese firework.
Hey, Don, we got Mike Zimczak. Might want to.
go ahead.
Mike Zimczak's on with us. He may want to chime in with this, especially after the
Let me
game.
just say what I was going to say, and with Mike on too. I just want to say you're exactly right. You got to have the players, and I think look at Daniel Jones with the Colts. That now that he has a line to protect him, and got some players, the guy looks fantastic. Much different than he did with the New York Football Giants.
He certainly does. We have to put a wrap on this. Say goodbye.
No. Hang in there, Billy. Mike Zimczak will join us. He's down in Baltimore, Washington. He covers the Ravens, Washington. But a Philly guy, and so he covers all the Washington, Baltimore area for us. And Mike, you want to jump in with a question before Billy has to go?
Well, I missed most of the conversation, so I'm not going to try to embarrass myself by asking something off the cuff.
We'll get you back for the Washington game last night on the hockey front with the team down here in Florida. But Billy, let's go back to the go. Let's look ahead realistically now in the time that we have remaining. A game the Eagles are favored, should win, and must win.
Yeah, they must win this game. No question about it. And Kevin O'Connell's playing close to the vest, the head coach of the Vikings. He hasn't announced the quarterback yet. So he's playing very coy with the Eagles. It's going to be J.J. McCarthy. It's going to be the former Eagle Carson Wentz. but they need to win this game, and they need to have some reparation with the Giants. I mean, the Giants embarrassed them on Thursday night, so they've got to get back on track. They have to win the next 2 games. They can ill afford to lose this game in Minnesota, and they cannot have the Giants beat them at home because, I mean, Cam Scattergood just ate them alive. Of course, Jalen Carter was not in the lineup, and that's a big loss. But the Eagles did not bring their D-minus game, let alone anything close to a good defense, and their offense was way out of sync. And I just think they have to win against Minnesota, have to win against the Giants, then they have to bye, and then they have to go up to Green Bay. So the schedule doesn't get any easier.
Billy Wardell, our special guest this half hour. And Billy, I thank you once again. I'll join you tomorrow at 2:45 down in that Philadelphia market. And thank you very much as always. And keep the ball rolling. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Take care.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Billy.
All right, Mike, we'll start off from ground zero. A couple of things I want to talk to you about. Number one, that handoff with the Commanders on Monday night. How can you be that careless with a 2-point lead and throw a game away because you don't hand off? The quarterback is careless and doesn't get the ball handed off correctly.
Everything that went right last year for them against the Bears with the Hail Maryland and that last second play just all seemed to unravel for them this year, and you get that late turnover. Remember, you also Jaden had an interception in that game. I know that he's working his way back from injury, and he hasn't exactly had the best start to the season, but we're definitely, I think, 6 games in, we can start to say we're seeing a little bit of second-year syndrome with Jaden Daniels. I don't think that it means that he's a poor quarterback or that he's going to be a bust or anything like that, but there's definitely some indications that the league has caught up with him a little bit, and he just hasn't been able to get it to get on the same level that he was, especially at the end of last year.
Roger?
Mike, what's the Commanders fandom like after that game? I know there was tremendous support at the stadium, no doubt about it. I mean, it was like the old days of the Redskins, in my opinion, from what I saw. But, I mean, now, after the game, what's the temperature of the fans?
They're feeling like they got kicked in the teeth. And this is a franchise, this is a fan base that is used to that. I mean, they're kind of bitter because since the 90s, it's been one Washington Capitals Stanley Cup and one Washington Nationals World Series, and that's about it. And this is a team that hasn't really had success in the last quarter decade or quarter century. So last year, everybody was feeling really good coming in. We think we've got it found out. You know, we should be really super competitive. And I think that, the feeling is that a little bit of that air has been let out of the balloon. Maybe this team isn't as good as last year's team, and that we have to temper expectations. And I said it to you all before that the way Adam Peters has set up this team, especially on defense, you know, last year when he signed these 50-50 guys and brought in all these players on one-year deals, they all broke 70-30 in his direction. It's not happening that way this year. And so I think Adam Peters is the one who has gotten the most criticism. And there are, if you listen to Washington Sports Talk Radio and talk to people, he's the one out of all of them who's on the shortest leash with the fan base. They're out for blood, and it's Adam Peters who's catching the most of it.
Doug Hamilton is going to join us in a few minutes to be on with Mike, too. We got put the two of these guys together last week, and we're going to put them together again this week to talk over Washington, Baltimore as well. Mike, for those people that have listened to us over the great number of years, know that Mike is a real soccer enthusiast, but more importantly, one of the most knowledgeable people in the world of soccer. Good news for the people in New York. New York Yankee Stadium is going to get a little of the MLS playoff action. In fact, if the game turns out correctly on Saturday, they'll get 2 of the 3 games of the 3-game playoff. Your thoughts on the moving to Yankee Stadium to get an opportunity to play as well as Met Stadium, and at the same time, their new stadium will not be open for another 2 years.
They have to get a new stadium, and it has been way overdue. Yankee Stadium gives NYCFC a very weird advantage because it is one of the smallest fields in professional soccer. It's actually barely on the verge of being not legal in terms of size. There's no standard size. There's a minimum set of guidelines. They have to be this long and this wide, but some are bigger, some are not. NYCFC has had success at Yankee Stadium because they've been able to play teams really, really narrow, and teams that, like the Philadelphia Union, who tend to want to spread out a little bit, have trouble going in there and playing. So that could actually be a pretty big advantage for them. I've never seen them play at Citi Field, so I'm not sure what the layout for that is going to be, and that could be interesting because they're not using one designated stadium.
Right.
So it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for them even to figure out how they're going to set up and what their tactics are going to be game to game as you're playing in multiple different venues, even though you're at home. The one advantage, for instance, that the Philadelphia Union have right now is they know that they're going to be playing at home. They know their stadium. They know how to go in. They know the bands. They know everything about that. In a way, by splitting these games in between Yankee Stadium and Citi Field, the NYCFC, when they do have a quote-unquote home field advantage, is kind of giving that away because they're going to 2 different places, one of which they're used to playing, one of which I'm not sure that they've played in at all or that much.
Well, definitely not Yankee Stadium. They haven't played there in a few years. But at the same time, if you take a look at what the actual, you're right up on what's happening in the stadiums in Washington, D.C. for the Commanders coming back downtown to where Robert F. Kennedy Stadium was. Well, NYCFC is slated to make their move.
Hey, Dougie, how you doing?
Hey,
They just asked for you, so I'm going to put you right in.
I'm in.
Next door to Citi Field, the new stadium, and it will be open in 2027. So they will have a permanent site beginning in 2027.
Hey, Don, Doug is on with us, too.
Okay.
It's been way too long for them. This project has been 10, 12 years in the making, and it's nice that they finally, and for their fan base, which is mostly based in Queens, it's good that it's going to be there.
Okay, we're also joined by Doug Hamilton. Doug, of course, for, again, as I said a minute ago when I talked about Mike, has joined us for so many years, a golf professional and a Masters professional, PGA Masters professional, a very select group. And he is kind enough to join us week in and week out because he follows the Baltimore Orioles, he follows the Ravens, he follows all sports in the Baltimore area, as does Mike in the Baltimore, Washington area as well. And Doug, your team is right now in a redesigned area. You got a week off, and then you got 4 games you should win.
Well, we're gonna go a couple different directions with my first comment. The first place I'll go is it's been a really bad year, if you will, to be a Baltimore fan. So if you guys are keep bringing me on the show, I might have to find additional sports. Maybe I have to get into pickleball here or something else. have another rooting interest here. But the second thing I would say is, 1 in 5. Gosh, I listened to and watched a good deal of the Rams game, and I was driving home from Falls Road after teaching, a handful of lessons, and we got first and goal can't get in. Second and goal, can't get in. Third and goal, can't get in. Go for it on fourth down. Derrick Henry can't get in. So now, that was kind of a heart stopper if you're a fan when it comes to momentum swings, if you will. And just watching these guys play, it's good grief. It's a comedy of errors when it comes to, there's the pulse, I think, of a lot of people here that I'm feeling, if you will, in the Baltimore area suggests that there need to be some changes made within the organization for whatever that means. You can point to, top down or, Mike and I have talked about this regarding players. Where do we stand with, pre-trade deadline thoughts of maybe moving some of these higher salaried individuals that were likely to not get back next year and or, additional people from. If you looked at the NFL, way too early mock draft, people like Mel Kiper like to discuss, the Ravens right now have the 3rd overall pick. So that's kind of tells you where their season currently is. To your point, Don, I do think if we can have a bye week here where we can get healthy and get some of these individuals back that could possibly make a difference moving forward. The schedule does soften. Does that allow us a chance to rally and somehow get back in this thing? We'll certainly see. Mike?
Are we now at a point, Doug, where you can honestly say the seat under John Harbaugh is getting a little warm?
Well, again, you probably get more of the Washington fan base, but I think you're not averse to paying attention to what happens here in Baltimore. And I think certainly this was my opinion when the Ravens had Joe Flacco and then they drafted Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson saved John Harbaugh's job at that particular point in time because I think he was going out at that point. I think if you're Steve Bisciotti, I think you have to have two schools of thought here. The first of which is if we get rid of John Harbaugh and start a new culture here, somebody else is going to hire him within the first 10 minutes. He's in the unemployment line. I think the second concept here would be, he's been there an awfully long time. Would he essentially get a pass, if you will, for having one bad season, to see if he can turn this sucker around and then, see what happens next year. So I don't know. I'm hearing an awful lot of people that would like to not have John Harbaugh as their head coach in Baltimore. I'm hearing an awful lot of people that are pointing the fingers at Zachary Orr, at Todd Monken, at Eric DeCosta. It's funny how when things seem to go off the rails, people hit the panic button and they just call for the easiest, solution, which is to say, let's start all over. And I don't know if that's Roger.
Yeah, I wanted to get back to soccer. I didn't want to interrupt you guys. Mike, I would think that by playing at Yankee Stadium on a smaller field, it's a much more offensive game. Am I right about that?
Sometimes yes and sometimes no.
So it really doesn't make any difference.
It doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
Sometimes if you have a team that wants to play out wide, you can stretch a defense and there's more space. So just as where there's a lot less space, what tends to happen is the game tends to get a little bit slower. And so you're not going to see as much openings. When they were playing there before, they had an older team, a more veteran team, a team that moved a little bit slower. There's more of an emphasis on passing and trying to break teams down because you're not going to be able to get around them as easily. And I don't know if NYCFC has the guys with that technical ability because there's going to be a lot of one-on-ones sorts of things. It's like we see in hockey when the ice gets a little choppy and the rinks seem to get a little bit smaller in the playoffs. You don't get those breakaways like you used to.
Okay, thank you.
I want to touch on a little bit of everything tonight. By the way, Toronto's 2-run home run, 2 runs, 2 hits. Rodriguez home run, and they lead right now by a score of 2-0.
Yeah, 2-0. Yeah.
Yeah, 2-0. And
what did I say, Don, in the first segment?
Trouble on
Series is over.
Well, let's jump to another topic for both of these guys as well as you, Roger. And that is Baltimore's got about 8 guys that lined up to manage that Baltimore Orioles team. Doug, we'll start with you. Who do you like to get the job in Baltimore?
Well, somebody asked me this question the other day, and they said, what do you think about Tony Mansolino? Do you think he should continue? And I gave a resounding 2 thumbs down and said, I think he did a nice job as an interim manager, kind of patching, if you will, to win as many games as he could. I mean, I think his style is a little different than Brandon Hyde. I think he did things a little bit differently. My knock on Brandon Hyde was he wouldn't bunt the guy over. He wouldn't play the small ball. And he had these splits, if you will, with his lineups where he felt like if a left-handed pitcher started, we need all righties. And I think Tony Mansolino was more of a gut instinct kind of guy, suggesting he wanted to put his best players out there, give them their opportunities to whether it was Jackson Holiday still leading off against the lefty or what have you. I think he did some things a little bit differently. I'm of more the mindset that I want. To me, Baltimore Orioles is synonymous with Earl Weaver. I want a manager who's not afraid to walk out to home plate, turn his hat around backwards, kick dirt on it, and say some bad words, and get thrown out to pump his team up a little bit. I like backbone. I think from my standpoint. So I'm not sure when we take a look at some of these managerial candidates. I know they are talking about Ryan Flaherty, who was the bench coach for the Cubs, who was an Oriole at one point. I know they've interviewed the guys from the Yankees, Rojas, I think his name is. I think Brad Osmus, his name was in the mix. I'm not sure how deep that list goes in terms of who they're likely to kind of turn over every rock they can to figure out, what's the best option here. But I think they need somebody with a very strong.
I got some sausage in there if you want out sausage, egg and cheese in the morning.
Mike?
That's what I'm
It's a
saying.
younger team, so I think that they're probably going to go with a younger manager, somebody who can relate to the players, but also who can grow with the team. That said, if he was about 10 years younger, I would think Joe Madden might be the perfect person because of his experience working with developing teams in small markets and things like that. I just don't think that you want the runway with a 71-year-old manager, although managers manage quite a long time, just isn't there. But every time I think about this team and what they need, his mind it just keeps coming up because I think he would be so good for that club, for that city, for he's exactly the type of guy that Doug just described.
Yeah.
It's just he's about 10 years too old.
Well,
so you're going to get the Scott Services, the Ryan Flaherty's.
right.
Probably you're looking at somebody with limited major league experience and somebody who's taken over for the first time, which I think is a bit of a risk because despite the fact that they had a really bad season this year, this is a team that is one or two seasons away, removed from 100 wins, and is in a really great position to bounce back and compete to be in the playoffs again next year.
Well, I mean, to your point, that's a valid take, I think, on that. I think Joe Madden is a distinct personality. I think he's really quirky. He does a lot of off-the-wall, off-the-cuff kind of concept, things when he manages. But, the thing about these first-time managers, I mean, look, you look in the NFL and the offensive and defensive coordinators are the next hottest thing. I mean, I don't know what the difference is between being an offensive coordinator and being a head coach is in terms of like the actual responsibilities, but it's got to be pretty close. So I mean, you take guys that are bench coaches, they've been doing this. Some of these guys are former players. They kind of have established themselves, if you will, as being baseball guys in that dugout.
I'll put that away.
It's no different than hiring. You
Friel.
look at
Leave it there. I'll get it.
the hottest hire
Yeah.
for the Bears head coach. from the Lions as their offensive coordinator. I mean, he was never a head coach. You know what I mean? So, John Harbaugh, for God's sakes, was a special teams coach who's had a Hall of Fame career. So, it's a crapshoot, though. I mean, for every guy that you get who's a first-time manager, and who ends up being the next great thing, Rob Thompson inherits the Phillies and takes them to the World Series in his first real managerial job. For every one of those guys that you also get a Gabe Kapler. And I know that Roger will absolutely love Gabe Kapler, so I'm certainly saving this one.